Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the What Women Want Today podcast. I'm your host, Terry Kellums.
And I'm Amanda Keeper. Welcome. We are so excited to be here with Cindy Rowe today. Cindy and I have known each other for a very long time. Actually, we met each other in high school and then reconnected in an MLM, a multi-level marketing company, and crossed paths that way, then didn't see each other for a while. And then for some reason, our career paths always find a way to meet each other again. So here we are, we have similar career paths. And one of the things that I love about Cindy is she is a storyteller and she understands the power of the narrative. And she understands this in lots of different ways because Cindy is not only a public speaker who has started her own brand, she's also a marketing consultant to help other people figure out how to show themselves to the world. And then she's also a social media coach. So Cindy, I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, good. So I'm going to jump right in because I think you have so much value to add to our listeners. So this is, as you know, Cindy, we invited you here as part of our grief series. And one thing that I noticed, luckily for social media, even though we may not comment a lot and talk, we all follow each other's stories. And I've been following yours, Cindy, for a long time. And one thing that I have been super inspired about from you is that you grind, like you do not stop. You are so disciplined. You have really strong habits. And even when you are faced with like horrible adversity, you are so resilient and refuse to give up.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, so you may not have known that I noticed that.
That's like, wow. Yeah, I don't even know. I can't even respond.
That's why I love Amanda, because she always has the things to say that go right to your heart, and she means every single one of them.
Oh.
Yeah.
I absolutely mean everything I say because I lack a discipline and I lack staying consistent with habits. So let me tell you, and Cindy has so much to share about discipline and habits because she's also been on another journey with her health. So I'm going to jump right in. Cindy, I would love for you to take us right to where you had to pivot in your life. You were going through a lot of things simultaneously the second time I reconnected with you. And you were experiencing lots of different types of grief. The ones that I can observe, or I did observe, as you were going through the grief of a divorce, the grief of redefining your career, and then the grief of being in an industry that wasn't too kind to you.
Yes.
So can you kind of tell us where you felt like, Terry used the word pivot, and I love that word. Can you tell us where your life really started to have this major shift in pivot?
Actually, it happened about 8 years ago, and when we reconnected, so I am a rule follower, and when we were in that MLM together, they told us to read 10 pages of a good book a day. And I wanted to be super successful. So even though I hated reading, I started reading those 10 pages of a good book a day. And they meant personal development books. And for me, that actually started changing me on the inside. Like, wow, okay, there's greater things that I'm meant for. And perhaps I can do this. I have that confidence to do it. However, the outside life, it looked perfect. And, I was married. I had 2 kids. I had a 6-figure job. But on the inside, I was really struggling and I hated all aspects of that. Not my children necessarily, but the ages that they were at were tweens. And if anybody has tweens, or experience the tween years. Yeah. So it was, I was searching for something better. And because of that company and helping me focus on those books, I mean, I still read 10 pages of a book a day, like 8 years later.
Do you have one particular book that you think like really impacted you back then?
It was The Slight Edge that we had to read, or it was suggested to read. And it just made perfect sense for me at the time because it was like putting in the little habits to create, change. And so it was simple. I loved You Are a Badass.
By Jen
That
Sincero.
was,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great one.
that sticks out of my mind. I think I've read it 3 times. And I think it's called On the Bright Side by Jess Estrom.
Yeah.
I really liked that one. In fact, I shared it with my daughter who never reads, and she loved it and passed it on to a friend of hers. So that's kind of been a traveling book. But you know, from there, I think those doing that professional development, personal development, it really helped me have the courage to step away.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it, well, I don't want to answer for you, but what was it like? If you could go back to that moment and you're mentoring somebody now, and you could go back to that moment and say, this is what it did for me. This is what I want you to do because I want this to happen for you too. What would that be? What would that thing be?
I think I always go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think I want to piggyback on that question, Terry, because it's perfect. You made a statement that I already wrote down that was really powerful. 10 pages started to change me on the inside. What exactly was it on the inside that was going on? So like if you had to describe the feelings of before the change started, what were the feelings of the everyday? Was it like a dread?
Yeah, I was lost. I was, and the funny thing is you look at other people's realities and they're a lot worse than what my reality was. But at the time, I really felt like my world was caving in. I hated everything. Like I was such a miserable person. If you knew me prior to that period of time, I think you would have called me bubbly, happy-go-lucky, outgoing, but I was really none of those. I was probably bitter, very negative. And so I could just feel that. I think it was always inside me from the beginning, since I was a little girl, that I had big dreams and I was going to do whatever it took. But as life happens and you grow up and you go through adulthood, I think those dreams diminish. So I feel like focusing on those books made me realize that, yeah, I can still go after those dreams. I can still do those things. I can find the confidence somewhere and do that. And, I also, during that time, I reached out to a friend who was actually in the MLM. I've never met him in person. And we weren't even on the same team, but we connected through social and we were great at piggybacking on each other's success, right? Like cheering each other up or rooting each other on, I should say. And I reached out to him and I'm like, man, my life sucks. And he's like, why do you think it sucks? And I'm like, everything just feels like it's so heavy and so hard. And he is the one that suggested that I do a random act of kindness. And I was like, okay, might as well do it if he thinks it might help my situation. And I actually asked him, I'm pretty sure I rolled my eyes or laughed at him when he told me to do that. But he told me, when you take the worry off of yourself and do something nice for somebody else, it makes everything look a little bit differently. And he was right. And I think that was part of the pivot for me, along with the personal development that I was doing. We all get in ruts. We all get, in funks, and usually we can pull ourselves out of it, a day, 2, maybe a week. But this was months, and I was really, it was not fun. And my marriage was really not fun either. Not that we yelled or were abusive, but we just ignored everything. And he
and
hated
like roommates.
that. Yeah.
Well, like
yeah. We would have dinner as a family and then I would leave. And then I would come back when I knew he was in bed. It was not fun. But he hated that I was in the MLM. And I think, reflecting back, like that being part of that company and that culture, focusing mainly on the personal development side, and the people that I met along the way really helped me get where I am now. I'm no longer part of the MLM or any MLM, but it had a purpose in my life at that time, and I'm grateful for it. You know, I share the story in, you know, my public speaking, my presentations, that random act of kindness didn't change me initially. I think I had to do several, but then I felt differently, like, oh, it wasn't so doom and gloom. You know, I saw that silver lining, maybe a ray of sunshine every now and then. And my 40th birthday was coming up. So I decided to do a random act of kindness for every day of my birthday. And my birthday is on Halloween, so there's 31 days. And what a great way to end the month with not only my birthday, but, you know, doing 31 random acts. And by the end of that 31 days, on my 40th birthday, I was a different person.
Wow.
And that's really where I feel like my life changed. And, you know, fast forward, you know, a year or so is when I had the courage to, you know, tell my husband at the time that this was not working and it was not beneficial for our family. And, you know, we sought counseling. We did all the right steps. We were high school sweethearts, you know, we'd known each other for a really long time, but we'd kind of grown apart. And it's scary to leave something so comfortable, but I knew that he was actually holding me back from achieving my greatness that I saw. And so yeah, the first hurdle was, you know, I had actually left my corporate job, started my business, and then got a divorce. And my business was only in its baby stages. I probably had one client.
That had to be scary.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know if I really have to dig a little deeper into that part of my life, but I feel like it was the only way out. You know, we can hold on to things for a really long time, and I think I did with my marriage, but it wasn't serving me, and I needed to figure this out, and I feel like I have. So it's taken me a while.
Cindy, can we go back just real quick? I don't want to dwell on it, but Amanda and I are starting to realize that, you know, a little bit of a younger audience could benefit from some of the wisdom of us who have already been through a lot. And I heard you say that you had these dreams and you found yourself putting them aside. And then you reached, you know, 40-ish and you realized, you know, that you could still pursue those dreams. Do you think it was a conscious decision that you were putting aside those dreams? Or do you think just everyday like life, just prioritizing different things like mom and taking care of a home and like what talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I went to college, and then my dream was like, ooh, I want to be, you know, have that fancy title and have that fancy car and the big office, and kind of forgot that, ooh, I wanted to have my own business. So that, honestly, that was a dream of mine. I remember playing shop, you know, in my bedroom and being a little entrepreneur. I didn't know the word probably at the time, but, you know, and it just shifted. And then, yeah, my dream was to be a mom and have a family. And so you do what you need to do for that. In fact, I was at a job before I had just gotten married, and it was for a husband and wife. So I was their only employee, and they heard me talking about trying to get pregnant. And shortly after that, they fired me because in the line of work we were in, they didn't seem like it was possible to be able to have a family and do what you do. So it was actually a meeting planner for an event planning company. And we traveled a lot, but yeah, they made that decision for me. So, but I think it's just, yeah, your current situation maybe changes. And so you kind of pack that old dream away But I think it was always there. And I think, starting with the MLM, like, refired that up, because it was kind of, your own business, and you had that freedom of seeing how much you could put into it to get out of it, right? And that's just like having your own business of, where I'm at. I work really hard, and and it shows that I'm getting the clients that I'm getting. So I think it's just, yeah, I think it was always there. I just shoved it because of what was currently happening, and maybe at that time they didn't seem as important.
Okay.
So when we kind of shift back to the grief part of it, what kinds of feelings of loss did you have? As like, I always think of it as a cicada. Like, you were like stuffed into the shell, right? And like, you had to like shed that identity so that your new identity could come forth. And I see you smiling. So talk to me about what you experienced.
Yeah, I learned a lot about myself and other people during my divorce. Because I was the one that actually moved out of the house. So the perception was that I was actually the fault for the marriage, where in fact we mutually decided that it was beneficial for us. But all of our mutual friends were torn on whose side, and because I moved out, they took his side, because they thought maybe I cheated or maybe I did something horrible, which was not the case. But people make up their own minds, and I lost a lot of friends, and that was probably the most troubling, because I didn't understand it. We were never angry towards each other. We still get along really well. In fact, I remember we attended my daughter's volleyball game at high school, and we sat next to each other along with our moms, supporting our daughter. And the rest of the crew came up, and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're not making it awkward. You are. Like, we're fine,
Right.
And I think that's why people don't understand that there is, or maybe it's not that they don't understand it. Maybe it's not like a recognition thing that, is like really like bright light. Oh my gosh, yes, this is grief, when you go through a divorce, because I think Amanda said this in another episode, but you're kind of, what did you say, Amanda? You're kind of like giving up your identity. Like, is that why we grieve so much over divorce? Is because all of a sudden our friends are taking sides, we're moving, everything seems to be changing all at once. And sometimes you just kind of feel like it's not in your control. And yeah, that's very much like grief.
Well, I mean, think about all the different ways that you grieve during divorce. You grieve your house that you once lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You grieve the extended family members that once were a very big part of your life. And then unfortunately during divorce, some people believe this narrative that you have to let go of those extended family members and can no longer be a part of their lives. You grieve the identity that you had as a married person.
Sure.
You grieve the identity that you had as somebody that could keep it together. And now you have to go through this. I'm a failure. Now my kids lived in two different homes. And now you have this like divorce guilt that you have to process. I mean, there's so many
and a lifestyle too, right? It's a lifestyle because if you spend a lot of your vacations going on vacations with other couples, and now all of a sudden you don't have them as friends anymore, or you had Saturday night card night, and you're giving up a lifestyle, because for some people you're giving up half of your income.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. So
yeah.
So there was the divorce guilt, and then, or not guilt, but there was the divorce grief. And then what about the whole shedding the corporate job? Because I think I remember talking to you around that time, and you got some backlash for that, right?
Yeah. So I left the corporate world, and then shortly after started my business, and then shortly after that got the divorce. But after I quit my job, actually I retired because I said I would never go back to corporate ever again. I had a reflection. I woke up and I just felt free and light. Like I made the right decision, because even leaving a 6-figure job, going to nothing, and then realizing, oh crap, I've got to figure out where that income's coming from, because my husband at the time could not afford our, lifestyle that we were, had or were used to. But I made a social media post, and people, the ladies that I worked with, two in particular, saw that post, and they wrote some really nasty comments. I can't remember it, now, but I remember feeling horrible. And they unfriended me, and they blocked me from their cell phones, and all this and they took it way out of context. They took it personal. I didn't even say anything towards any person. It was really a reflection of me. Like, I remember saying something like, no longer a puppet in the corporate world, or something like that. I remember the puppet I don't know the rest of it, but it was horrible. And, I would bump into them occasionally, and they would act as if I didn't exist. And that was really hard for me, because I would never treat anybody like that unless I seriously didn't recognize them, but I didn't change in a couple months. So, that was really hard. And just knowing that, now half of our income was on my shoulders to produce, and my ex-husband was not on board with me doing that. And I think that also kind of put the other nail in the coffin, so to speak, that, he didn't believe in me, and I needed to be with somebody that believed in me. And I didn't think that dream of owning my own business was really out there. I mean, I have, a dream of owning my own private island. Now that might be out there, but actually I've seen some that are only like $1 million, and I'm pretty sure that's attainable. Like, $1 million is it. Like, I just need to win the lottery once. But yeah, so grief of losing, me as that, vice president of marketing, having a pretty fancy title, getting, all the money that I was getting, the benefits, having those type of relationships, and basically, walking away from that, and then walking away from the marriage and what that meant. Man, the guilt too, like you have mentioned, you were listing them all. I'm like, yep, all of those, deciding where to live and making sure it was, beneficial for my children. I ended up buying a house, and I made sure it was in their school district, so that when we sold our family home, because we couldn't afford it individually, that my ex wouldn't have to worry about being in the school district for the kids, since I was the first one to move out. And I remember, making sure, and then I let them know that regardless of what happened with me in the future, that I would never take them out of their school, unless it was their decision to go to a different school. And I've held true to that.
So Cindy, all these things are happening to you, right? And you're starting to make some great strides. And then the car accident.
Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah. So I was actually leaving one client's office and or meeting, and going to another client meeting, and a lady pulled out in front of me, and I T-boned her, going anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. I went to the hospital, or the ER, whatever, and they're like, you're gonna be sore for a few days, but you're lucky to be walking away. About a week later, I was not well. My head was really bad, and I couldn't focus, and all these things. Well, it was around the holidays, and my doctor was like, I think you have a concussion, but it might be more severe than that. You need to go see a neurologist. And so that was at the end of November, my car accident, and middle of January, I was able to see a neurologist. So I went about 6 weeks untreated. And he's like, yeah, you suffered a TBI.
What is a TBI?
A traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
So I didn't have an open brain injury, but it was more severe than just your average concussion. So they told me I had post-concussion syndrome, and I'd never heard of it, but Google is our friend, and I was like, oh yeah, that is me to a T. And so what I learned about that is it's a concussion that is usually surrounded by a traumatic event. So where you don't recover the same way as if you would recover from a concussion, like in a few days, right, of rest. I also had post-traumatic headaches and PTSD and severe whiplash. And they told me that because every brain is different, they couldn't tell me my recovery time. And I had several clients at this point. My business was growing, and now I had to make that decision of, do I shut the doors to my business? Because I can't, they basically told me I could only work about up to 60 minutes a day on my computer. So, and I really didn't feel like I could do much more than that anyway. And I'm a creative, so you're always on the computer. So I, met with all my clients and told them, here's the deal. I don't know what the future looks like, and I want to be fair and let you out of your contract if, and I totally understand. Now, my clientele is super small businesses. I love the mom and pops. So they can't afford to pay somebody and not get the work done. But all of my clients told me they want to see me recover and just do what I can. So they kept me on, and I was amazed. And that's honestly at the point where I realized that I built my business with kindness, not only integrity, because I feel like business owners, we say that all the time, but I felt like I built it with kindness because of that activity I did at my 40th birthday. And they were paying me back with kindness and grace to get me through this hurdle. That was the end of 2018, and all of those clients are with me still today.
Oh, that's a great story. I love that.
But the trauma that happened, and I feel like I had to become my own advocate for my healing. I pushed a lot because I wanted to heal as fast as I could. I'm a great patient. You tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm a rule follower. So I'm like, just tell me what to do. If I have to do a lot at home, I'll do it at home. I was going to brain therapy 3 days a week, and had activities I had to do at home. I was, but I'm like, is there anything else we can do? Every time I'm like, what else can we do? What other therapies are there? I've heard needling, I've heard all this stuff. And my guy was like, okay, he's like, this is great. Let's see we'll try it, and they did a nerve block and all these things. And they put me on some meds that made me really sleepy. I couldn't wake up in the morning, or when I woke up, I could not move. I was really, really relaxed. And I told the doctor, I'm like, I can't be on this because I'm a single mom on a 2-story. And if I have to get up and help my kids, it's going to take me a good 40 minutes to get downstairs, and that's not acceptable to me. And he's like, well, you're probably going to have to be on this or something like this for a really long time, if not the rest of your life. I'm like, nope, I can't. You have to find something else. And I'm really not a medicine taker. I really would rather have the natural supplements, whatever. This neurologist heard me. I was probably vocal, but he heard me, and he developed a list of supplements to take that to get me off of the other med. And so I did that, and about a week later, I was like, yes, I'm feeling better, and I can wake up in the morning and get going. And so we went along with that, but unfortunately, he had to let me go as a patient because I was not following his medical protocol. So that actually screwed me over when I went to go sue the lady that hit me, or that pulled out in front of me. But I had to be, even with a brain injury, I had to be, strong and figure out what my next step was so that I could heal properly. And it was, so I used to work 10, 12, 14 hours a day, just probably like most, entrepreneurs or busy women. And when that accident happened, I was down to, the 60 minutes, and then gradually got to 2 hours, and then 3, 4. 4 hours was a time period that I had for a really long time, that I could only work about 4 hours. And then it moved to about 6 with an afternoon nap. I called it my reset, just so I wouldn't be mad at myself that I had to take that break. And just recently, within the last few months, I finished my first 8-hour day.
Wow.
So 5 years later.
Where does the public speaking, when did that enter into your picture?
Great question. So I loved speech class as a kid. Stupid, but I loved it.
Love it too.
Amanda's happy to hear that.
Well, what was her name? Mrs. White? No, she had white hair. Is that what, wasn't Miss White? Well, whatever. She was our English speech teacher in high school, and I loved that class. I loved it on improv days when we would have to pull a slip and talk for 2 minutes about whatever we pulled out. That was like a highlight. Now, I forgot about that when I went to college and whatnot. Before my accident in 2018, in November of every year, I create my goals for the next year for my business. And I had said that I wanted to hold my own social media conference. And then I wanted to do several workshops for small business owners. That was a goal of mine. Well, then the accident happened, and I made an excuse of why I couldn't do it. I mean, not really an excuse, I just really couldn't do it. But it was August of 2019. I was reviewing my goals, and I saw that, and the guy I was dating at the time said, well, you can still accomplish that. I'm like, yeah, but can I? And then I thought about it. I'm like, yep, I just need to set the date. I just need to give myself a timeline and do it. I did. In October of 2019, I held a social media conference that I put on myself. It was just me, 4 hours. And I was expecting 15, 20 people. Like, that would have been a dream come true, right? It was free. You even got breakfast. I was really doing it because it was in my heart to just provide and, train people like, hey, these are just the little things that you could do to tweak in your business, and you can be rocking and rolling. Kind of a way to give back. But I just love teaching and coaching people. And I had, I think, 52 people, standing room only, at my event. And I loved it. I loved being up there. I was not nervous when I got up there. I was, had a blast. And then I got invited to speak in 2020 for the Belvedere Chamber Ladies Luncheon. And they just wanted me to share my entrepreneurial story. I was like, okay. I had bullet points of in my head what I wanted to discuss, but I really just went up there and led with my heart. I was with 2 other women who, one was a leader in a hospital and another one was the YMCA director. And then there was me. And I was like, well, if we have imposter syndrome, I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting there I just kept getting smaller and smaller. I'm like, okay, I don't know how I can compare to them. But I got up and I shared my story, and people applauded. I had people come up afterwards saying, wow, you totally inspired me, great story, blah, blah, blah. And it was one of my best days of my life. I was like, I meant to do this. I need to do this. And I just got that nudge of, yep, I just, obviously I take it a little bit more seriously now, and I practice and do things differently. but that moment really told me that that's the direction I want to take my business and my profession. So
I was just talking with Terry about this yesterday. The moment people go from hoping something will happen to knowing something will happen. And in that moment, you knew, like you knew, like it's part of your hair color that this is what I'm meant to do. And it gives me goosebumps because once you hit the knowing phase, it's like the sky opens up and everything's becomes so crystal clear.
Yeah.
So you start, I think I was telling Terry because, you know, obviously we're so fascinated by all of we're very like-minded. In fact, as you're talking, Cindy, I'm like, okay, you and Terry need to be BFFs because you two are so like-minded. Even your habits and rituals and the way you think and process is like-minded. So you guys,
rule follower.
no discipline, totally spontaneous. You two just take care of me and we're all good. So Cindy, if you ever come on vacation with us, like I don't bring anything. I need extra deodorant, makeup. I need clothes. I need shoes.
This is true. She's not even joking.
That's great.
But so you actually, again, with your discipline and your habits, you know, like I'm going to be a public speaker. So what do? Being Cindy, you self-develop. So you start taking a class.
Yep.
Which I'm taking the same class right now, by the way.
Are you really?
The mic drop workshop?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I did Mic Drop Academy and I did Thought Leader Academy, and they were incredible. Like
I just did
really helped me.
Yeah, I just did a little session with the Thought Leader Academy. Did you think that one was worth it?
Yeah. So they really helped me narrow down what my story was. So, because I could have gone many different ways, right? I could have gone with, you know, the trauma of my entire life over and over again. I could have talked just about my brain injury. I could have just talked about divorce. I could have just talked about sexual assault. I could have just talked about entrepreneurship. I mean, there were so many other ways. And the biggest hiccup I had was I'm a marketing consultant, but I don't want to speak on stage about social media or marketing. Like, I don't like going for, I will, don't get me wrong, but that, that doesn't like fire me up and get me, you know,
passionate, passionate about it.
You feel alive. You feel alive when you're...
I think alive is great because I am passionate about marketing and social media, but I just don't see myself doing that over and over and over again. So Thought Leader Academy really helped me figure out what my message was, and they helped me develop my story and my keynote. It was really great. Mic Drop Academy, which is the next level up of the workshop, they helped me with how do I take that and go further, you know, like publicity, branding, all that stuff. They actually helped me narrow it down even more so, and then expand it. So I already had my core message, my core keynote, I guess, presentation, but then they're like, okay, well, here's how you can make it a workshop. Here's how you can make it, you know, a training session. And then if it goes from you just needed to speak 30 minutes, this is how you take it down so that people still walk away with your core message. Or if you need to expand it to 90 minutes, this is what you need to beef up, you know. So they were both amazing in their own right. So I'm just glad I was introduced to all of them. Now, I still meet with our Mic Drop people. We're actually meeting tonight, the group I was in, because we just thought that the only way we can continue with our successes is if we keep sharing them with each other, or, you know, our troubles, or, you know, our hurdles, you know, failures, learn from each other and get inspired by each other, like what's working, what's not. So I look forward to that. It's the first Wednesday of every month. And we do that outside of the whole thing. Like we planned it on our own. So I'm excited. And the
So
people
Cindy-
that you meet are incredible too. Like,
Mhm.
you talk about imposter syndrome. I'm like, what am I doing with these people? So
So Cindy, you have a very defined brand now, and you have a lot of different aspects of your brand. So I know you have like a clothing line, right?
yes.
You have a
Mhm.
clothing line, you have your own podcast now,
Yes.
you
Mhm.
have your public speaking
Yes.
that you do, and then you have marketing,
Yes.
and then you're a mom, and then you're a wife, and you are a friend, and you are also on top of all of this, grieving one more thing that I noticed. And
No.
that is the body that is robbed from every woman when she turns 40 years old. So
You know,
please tell me the grief that you've had to go through on that one last topic.
oh my gosh. I remember, I swear it was on my 40th birthday. I put on a pair of jeans and they didn't fit me, but they fit me the day before. And I was like, what in the hell is happening? Like, seriously. But yeah, it's crazy what our bodies do after 40, and it's no joke. And before COVID, I was a spin instructor and I loved it. And I didn't,
Oh God, another thing you two have in common. See, Terry loves to work out.
yeah, I do too. Nobody ever has to tell me to work out. I just enjoy it. And that really does help my mental health.
Yeah.
But so after COVID, obviously I was not spinning on a regular basis. I ended up buying a spin bike for my birthday, and just so I had it at home because I just enjoy it so much. But I started feeling like crap. And I couldn't really pinpoint it to anything other than my age. And maybe so a couple of years ago I was bit by a tick, and they tested me for Lyme and didn't have it, but they treated me as if I had it. But ever since then, I have felt really puffy and icky and can't lose weight, and no matter what I do. So yeah, I am really, I look at pictures of myself, even early 40s, I'm like, man, I wish I thought I was thin then.
Seriously, right?
I really do, because I try so hard now, and it's a big hurdle. But I actually just worked with a functional practitioner, and I did a 90-day body reset, and it was pretty rough.
What does that entail? What is that?
Oh,
What is
tell her, Cindy, what that means.
So it means, so we did some blood work and stool samples and urine samples and all that fun stuff, and got my test results back, and they found out I had a leaky gut and a clogged liver, and I had H. pylori, and my hormones were all out of whack, and not just the female hormones, but like cortisol was like super low, but something that balances that was really high. I'm no doctor, so I don't, but I was a mess. And so the minimal protocol was 90 days, no sugar, no added sugar, no alcohol, no
Oh, you just
dairy,
lost me.
and
No,
no
no
eggs.
glass of wine. I'm out.
No, listen, say that one more time.
Sorry.
No added sugar, no dairy, no gluten, and no alcohol. And then I took a food
Why live?
sensitivity
Like,
test.
why live at that point? Like,
Believe
no
me.
bread. I heard you say no bread, no wine. That's what I heard you
See,
say.
for me, it was cheese. I was like, I can't
Oh,
have cheese.
cheese too.
I
Yeah.
miss cheese the most out of
For
every.
90 days?
Yeah. And then, so with the food sensitivity test, I couldn't have anything that fell in the yellow category or the red. So those are like, you're very sensitive or you're slightly sensitive. And that included corn, avocado, coconut, garlic, strawberries, but I almost said it together, bananas and blueberries, tuna, chocolate. Like, I went grocery shopping the first time and I was in tears. And I was really pissed. I don't even know if I can swear on here, but I was like so angry because everything that I could have that was gluten-free had garlic in it, or had was made with coconut oil or avocado oil. And I was like, this sucks. Yeah. So then I also, along with that, did a liver cleanse and then finished up with a GI cleanse. And in 2 weeks, it was really horrible. The first 2 weeks, horrible headaches. I was not a nice person, I'm pretty sure. Just ask Scott, my husband. But after that, it was incredible. I felt great. My sleep was amazing. Still getting great sleep right now. Waking up before my alarm, waking up refreshed, like ready to go. My skin cleared up. I never really had nasty skin anyway, but like I felt like, wow, it looks healthy. If that's I ended up losing 12 pounds. I really thought I'd lose a little bit more, to be honest with you, because of the alcohol that I was not consuming. But nevertheless, I still felt really, really good. And I did not cheat at all.
Wow.
There were times I wanted to, but again, I'm a rule follower, and it's a commitment, right? Like, and I was committed to it. So it was really easy for me to say no to the alcohol when we went out with friends, because it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to try this. My mentality was, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it for me because I'm worth it and I'm feeling good and I don't want to wake up not feeling good tomorrow. And, so I'm a social person, and everybody, whenever we would go out, they're like, oh my gosh, how can you do this? I'm like, yeah, well, it's tough, but I'm fine. And I would ask like the bartender if they would give me a glass of ice water in a cocktail glass, not the big Coke or Pepsi red thing, I don't need everybody asking me why I'm not drinking, but or getting a club soda with the lemon instead of adding the vodka in it, but I survived and it was great. And so now I'm past the 90 days, and the functional practitioner just suggested that I have dairy and alcohol as treats. So not all the time, but as a special treat, and then stay away from the gluten.
That's so hard. The gluten is so hard.
It's actually easier with some of the products that they have out now. So I ended up I love cooking anyway. So it just, for those 90 days, it was really just cooking whole foods, and instead of grabbing a box of rice or whatever, although I could have rice and potatoes and that really made my day. I can put butter on it, but it made my day.
Yeah, I talked to Cindy on the phone and she was like, I just want to eat so many potatoes and so much. I was like, girl, I would be eating every baked potato in sight. But
that might be why I didn't lose more than 12 pounds, is because I was overdoing it on the carbs, but because I could have it, right?
Right.
So I have changed my habits a little bit. During COVID, I really got into this habit of drinking a glass of wine while I was cooking, because I was in the kitchen by myself. My husband, long story, but we were living in a building and he was out in a different part of the building. And I was just in there all by myself. And I'm like, well, this is no fun. So I started just drinking a glass of wine when I was cooking. And I think we all developed some not so great habits during COVID, but it just kind of stuck with me afterwards. So now it's that whole thing about a habit. Like, you need the cue, you need the reward, you need all that stuff, right? And so to me, every day when you go to cook, that means you should have a glass of wine, But I haven't been sleeping well. And one of the women that I interviewed on the podcast within the last, 3 or 4 months, she said, try skipping the wine during the week and save it for the weekends. So I have been trying that. And last night I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep. And I thought, and I didn't even get to have a glass of wine.
This is bogus.
This is bull crap. Yeah.
So Cindy, I know we're getting close to the hour. Can you just kind of wrap up with us today? We've talked about so many different types of grief of identity, grief of your body changing, grief of losing corporate job and then having to reframe, getting the backlash of people that don't support you, grief of being in relationships where people, don't believe in you and you have to muster that courage and believe in yourself because nobody's going to do it for you. So many different types of grief. And then you're led to this purpose of the kindness advantage is what you call it, which I absolutely love. What do you want people to know about the kindness advantage? What do you want companies to know, listeners to know, anybody that might consult with you for a speaking job or a coaching job or a marketing job? Like, what is the kindness advantage?
I actually see it as a core value, a way of life that really truly leads to success. And that's success of whatever success means to you. For me, having done that exercise, and you don't have to do 31 days of kindness to figure it out, that it can be a life changer, but it really put a core value within me. And I want people to know that if they were to focus a little bit more on kindness, be intentional with kindness, that it can actually change their life, their business, their team members. It can fuel their bottom line, and it's not just from my experience. When I've been putting together my keynote, actually done a lot of research and found that, it's Mental Health Awareness Month right now, and kindness is a big impact on our mental health. And there's so many scientific studies that have happened that prove that kindness is so good for you, for your health, for your well-being. I'm a living, breathing, advocate for that because it literally changed me. But yeah, it can have that great impact. The companies that I work with, they almost have a light bulb of, wow, that's such a simple concept. Why didn't I think of that type of thing? But again, it needs to be practiced. It needs to be intentional. I am not perfect. After 8 years of doing intentional kindness, just ask Scott, my husband, but I'm working on it. And I think the great thing is that I notice when I'm not kind, and I can go back and apologize and be like, I'm working on this and I shouldn't have done that or said that. But anyway, long story short is I think it is, I say this all the time, it's a competitive advantage if you use kindness, as a core value, either personally or professionally.
I absolutely love that. I love that. I love that you said kindness is a way of life. And it's a simple message, but a powerful message. And, imagine being in a room with people who had that as a core value, your whole culture changes.
Yep.
And if you haven't already done this, I am a creative as well. If you haven't already done this, I would love to see a blog called Kindness Can Fuel Your Bottom Line.
I will do that because that's actually part of one of my keynote titles, I guess.
Yeah, that kindness can fuel your bottom line. Like that's the mic drop sentence for me in terms of in terms of the corporate world. So this has been really just a pleasure for me. Terry, how have you experienced this today?
Absolutely. Cindy, Rowe, thank you so much for, sharing your story, being vulnerable. There were so many stories of resilience woven throughout there, so many. Just thank you for being brave and coming on here and sharing that with the world. I'm going to leave this episode today with the quote that you said, be intentional with kindness.
Oh, and one last thing. This is the Soul Sister series, Cindy. And this is something that Terry and I are doing. It, as you know, this is our first season collaborating together. So our final question to you is, what makes a soul sister?
Oh my gosh. I should have been prepared with listening.
That's the fun of it.
What makes a soul sister?
Like when you think of your soul sister or one of your soul sisters, like what is it? Like what's special about
what are the attributes? Yeah.
What's special about a soul sister?
I think they love you regardless of how you behave.
That is the darn truth. That is the darn truth.
And I have one person in particular that like comes to mind when I hear the word soul sister or the phrase soul sister, and she calls you out and on whatever it is, if you're not being a nice person, or if you're in the wrong, even though you think you're right, she calls you out. But then she ends with you know I love you, right? Like, and I think everybody needs a person like that in their life that you can have fun with, you can do fun things with, but they'll also like make you realize that you're not amazing all the time, you know.
Darn.
I mean, honestly, though, you know, I feel like if we don't have somebody like that, we can, you know, really get full of ourselves and we've gone through rough patches and we end up, you know, calling each other and like, man, you know, I can't imagine life without you. So I'm sorry, you know, and get over it. So, but yeah, they love you regardless of what you do.
And you can't imagine life without them. I love it.
Imagine life without them.
Oh, so we will put how to reach Cindy in all of the show notes. It's been a fantastic episode. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
ladies.